So I don't know how many of you guys are aware of this, but if you watch my other videos, you'll know that my throat has been killing me as of late. It's been better, thankfully. I've been a little bit kinder to my vocal cords, talking a little bit less, drinking lots of tea with honey and lots of lemon tea, and just hydrating like hell. But I have to give you my full range today because, my God, there be some fiends out here in ReZero. For ReZero, I have to put my vocal cords on the line for you guys. But with that said, ladies and gentlemen, we are here to talk about ReZero Season 2, Episode 5, A Step Forward. Let's go ahead and get into it. Before we do, though, quick reminder, hit that subscribe button. If you are not subscribed, then you gotta hit that sub button. Don't let me be putting my voice on the line for nothing. Hit that subscribe button, maybe even ring that bell if you're feeling especially kind, but without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this. Now, I know that some of you guys have gotten a little bit comfortable to this new style we have here on the channel where we go through things scene by scene, moment by moment, but that tends to lead to very, very lengthy videos, and for the sake of my voice box, I'm not going to be doing that for the next little bit. So instead of aiming for like 40+ minute videos, we're gonna try to go for like 30+ minute videos. Just 10 minutes less, again, to ease the stress on the old voice box. Now that said, I still have a lot to say, and most of which is most of the episode. Like, again, this is a situation much like the Fruba episode, or Fruba video we did yesterday, where I still end up having this mighty need to talk about most of the episode. But I'm gonna be doing it out of order because I gotta talk about these fiends.